So, there is an amazing book with wisdom that many of you probably know, but if you don't, it's a very advanced book that is known to many who have a positive mindset. And it's called Pete the Cat. Pete the Cat. Raise your hand if you know of the stories of Pete the Cat. So Pete the Cat has a friend, and Pete the Cat, first of all, just has a little bit of a personality that, sometimes gets, down on life. Sometimes things happen and Pete the Cat's not so happy. But Pete the Cat has a friend, I think it's the owl, that says, "Pete, look for the good, look for the good." And he has these glasses that he wore, these blue sunglasses that turn everything into something good, that help him to focus and see what is positive when things don't look like they are so positive. And then he breaks them and he loses them, but then his friend reminds him that actually the real glasses, the real vision is inside of you. And you don't actually need to put on your glasses to get that experience. But so often, don't we feel like we need them? Don't we feel like we need something else to put on? And for us as mature individuals on a spiritual practice and a spiritual path, that process is putting on our practice. That process is our meditation, our affirmation. It's walking the truth. It's engaging the laws, the spiritual reality, and activating the truth. Because life sometimes feels like a big rainy day, doesn't it? Right? Sometimes it's raining, it's raining, it's raining, it's raining. I see a beautiful rainbow mask in here. And part of our journey as spiritual practitioners is to look for the rainbow, to watch for the rainbow in the midst of the rain. Now, a lot of people will tell you there are not always rainbows. There are some times when there's no rainbow to be found. But in Unity, we teach that it's a mindset. That in fact, if you can't find the rainbow, then you are called to become it. You are called to stand in your co-creative power and to create from this knowing that that is your divine birthright, to create it. I have a beloved that I am grateful to be invited deeply into her life and get to share her prayer requests and her prayer practice, and I got her permission to share this story today. But we have been holding her sister in prayer for quite some time because her sister has had some medical issues, and she went down recently to visit her sister, who is taken care of by a partner. Taken care of, I mean, she's the younger one, so for much of their life, she's been the one doing more of the care. But she has a partner that she's been with for almost 30 years, not married, but been with. And so they have had this life together, and she's used to being the one that is more of the caretaker, but recently, with some immune issues, she has needed care. And so she's needed to go into the hospital, have some procedures done, and be in a care facility. And so this sister, and you know about sisters, la da 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 da. Nothing comes between me and my sister, right? But this sister was up advocating for and caring for a sister. And what unfolded during that visit and during that experience was this partner, this not husband, but life partner, and another relative that kind of is the advocator or care, decided that her sister would not be coming home to the house. That when she was in her hour of need for care and rehabilitation, she did not have a home to come back to, which seemed like it was out of nowhere. Now, given this man and woman have been together for nearly 30 years, and there was what seemed like quite a shift. And you can fill in the blanks about other things that may have been shared that feel heartbreaking and that don't feel supportive and that feel shocking. But we're looking at figuring out the next level of support and care for someone that is in great need, and we're looking at a moment of total abandonment and feelings of betrayal and rejection. Can you feel that? Like, feel that intensity. Now think not just if that's you, like what you would experience or feel like about the planet and whether or not it's a safe place on the planet, but I mean, you invest in your relationship, right? You invest in your life, and you put so much in and you care. And then to think that when you are not able to advocate for yourself, someone just steps back and says, we're done. We're all done. Grand opportunities to build up resentment and anger, right? Grand opportunities for experiencing a deep problem. And absolutely on a practical level, the opportunity and the knowing that some things have to happen, some action has to be taken. So this is what I returned in a text of prayer and consciousness when it was shared with me that the partner of nearly 30 years rejected her. I texted back, he thinks he refused her. Our prayers refused him because they are more powerful than his smallness, and your sister is under God's care, not his limited ability. So what I know to be true is this beloved has been on not only our prayer list, but the prayer list and the prayer community of every sibling and every person in the family that knows the situation, just as far as her health. So we were already praying her up. And what I know is nothing really shifted, nothing really changed in that home or in that circumstance, because those things don't just come out of nowhere. We're getting more information about what already was existent. And what I know is that if I hold the space and you hold the space and where two or more are gathered, we are holding the space for the highest to unfold for an individual, and something like this happens, I know to stand in my practice and stand in my truth and to say she was just spared. It doesn't seem like it seems like something else happened, but the true story is that she was just spared, because I would not want my beloved to be cared for by someone who would treat them like that. I wouldn't want to find out that I didn't know that was the environment in which she was living. What the human may mean for evil, God has plans for good. God, the grand overall design. Not a person that is interacting and causing harm or blessing, but the grand overall design, love itself, intelligence itself, the activity of spirit itself. So yes, there's heartbreak, anger, resentment, and yes, everyone, even experiencing that story, has the opportunity to presence it. And we presence these things, and then our practice teaches us to move into principles, because we can be consumed. Do we not have the opportunity all the time to be consumed by negative energy? To be consumed by negative activity? To be consumed by negative stories? But our spiritual practice is to use our own activity, our own power, our own practice, our own quality of thoughts to do something. Can we trust that when we've been praying, when we see something fall apart, that we can stand in it and become the rainbow? We can stand in it and declare the good. We can stand in it and become the activity of turning a corner in consciousness. I know that there is a divine solution for this, beloved, and that it is unfolding. And what is scarier to me than having this sad new information is not having the information. A lot of times in life when we get new information, we go, no, please take that back. I don't want that information. I don't want to add that to the repertoire of what I know about my life, someone's life, the world. But if we can stand in our spiritual practice, we can simply say the words, good to know. Good to know, and welcome in more information and engage in the possibility when it's relevant that maybe I've been spared. Eric Butterworth, and I want to teach from this book today because there's more to read than just a quote. It's so rich. But Eric Butterworth in the book Life is for Living says this about truth. He says, "The truth shall make you free of all anxiety when you know that God knows and that the divine law of adjustment is working to regulate the affairs of your life. Your part is to believe, to let go and let this dynamic activity establish divine order in all which concerns you. In the face of delays and obstacles, it is well to think twice before you willfully seek to force a solution according to your predetermined plan. The closed door may indicate that the divine law of adjustment is pointing to another door through which you can go to meet your greater good. The direction to which you can go to meet your greater good." He goes on to talk about whether or not, you know, that idea that people kind of say, well, God did it and God did it for you. You know, when terrible things happen, when seemingly terrible things happen. Like it's just part of the plan. Eric Butterworth goes beyond that. He goes beyond looking at retrospective whys, saying that that's not always fruitful. And he goes in to saying what we know is that God is in it. God is everywhere present. The grand overall design, absolute love itself, the harmonizing faculty is in every moment and in everything, drawing forth the highest outcome according to the law. It's wise to learn about the spiritual laws that govern this spiritual universe. When we don't know about them, we just see the rain often and not the rainbow. There was an article I was reading. I had a friend actually text me. I didn't send her this article, but I sent her some articles at night, and she texted back and she said, "I don't think reading articles at night is really good for your mind." With the things that I was sending her, she was saying, let's stop that. But I was reading an article, and it was a heartbreaking article. It was about a medical personnel that was working with minors and abuse, and this individual's job was doing assessments to confirm whether there was abuse that had taken place. And she's writing an editorial article about how difficult this has been, especially in this current time. So in this current time, she was saying the numbers of experiences she's having, the number of people coming into this particular room for this particular exam has increased, that it used to be more infrequent, but in this day and in this time, it's getting disturbingly frequent. And so she kind of highlighted her journey and her mental anguish and her process on what that experience is like, what that feels like. And she tells about leaning into and leaning on someone who had been in the field for longer, someone who has been working in this field for longer than she has. And her shift was ending and the other individual's shift was starting. And she just kind of leaned into them and said, "Does this get any easier? Does this get any easier with more time evaluating patients?" And the one checking into her shift says, "It doesn't. It doesn't. You just live with it and get tougher." And then she walked away. But she came back. She came back and she told her, "Always find the good in what you do here." She gave her an assignment. And you know what? She didn't just say see the good. She said find the good. Always find the good in what you do here. And she said, when you evaluate these children, you're helping to make sure whoever did this to them gets prosecuted. We all hear about things that are very difficult to hear about. With the extreme heat, we know about cars and how cars get so very hot and what can happen if we have too much on our minds with a vehicle that is too hot and we leave someone in that vehicle or an animal in that vehicle. It's hard to think of any good, right? It's hard to look at any of that and say there's a plan. And in fact, people leave religions in droves when people tell them there was a plan there. I don't think that's something that you can ever tell someone else about their lives and a challenging experience. That may be something that through meditation, prayer, affirmation, practice, time, intuition, may be something that someone can dive into on their own and start seeing some deeper meanings or some deeper ideas behind or patterns to. But the idea that we could ever look at something that seems heartbreaking and say that's God's plan and it's good. God is good all the time and that's good. Or even really look for the good. But can we say, be the good that comes out of this? Become the good that comes out of this. Create the good that comes out of it. Stand in it. And be determined not to let anything turn you around, stand in your way, or limit your good. Because the other option makes life even more difficult. The other option is to get trapped in resistance, to continually deal with failed expectations, to live in resentment. You know, for a lot of us and a lot of people that you might know, there might be one time in life, one story, one system, or one person that is always the topic of conversation as far as a problem. If there's one person that you keep going back to that's a problem, you're misallocating your spiritual resources. If there is one person I keep contemplating and I make them the problem, not saying that they're not a problem, not saying that something is not a problem, but if my mind keeps rolling on a racket where they or it, or whenever it was, 1976, whatever it was, is the source of a problem, still, I am not free. And if I am not free, I am certainly not allocating my spiritual resources with wisdom. I'm not in the driver's seat. I'm leaking energy. I might be leaking it, I might be dispersing it and giving it to someone else, I might be misdirecting it or misusing it. But breathe into that for a moment. Maybe there is something in your life, in my life, maybe there's something in the life of someone we're supporting where they got stuck, or we got stuck in a moment of time. And we're not aware that we're not utilizing our spiritual resources because we're in resistance or resentment, or we're leaking our energy, misdirecting, misusing, or allocating our power somewhere else, or to someone else, or to something else. We're letting something turn us around, rather than knowing the truth that no one has power over you unless you give it to them. In a moment, maybe. In a moment, there's an experience. In a moment, you know, that's when we breathe into the practice and we be with what is. But after that moment has passed, it is my creation. And I can stand in anything and say, this is for me. Not because of some interesting God that tortures people, gives them some terrible experience and says, go ahead, do something with it. But because the God activity of this active universe that is around me, in me, and through me is always moving and elevating and harmonizing and shifting things toward the good. That's the spiritual law. Which spiritual law? I remember at my time of Unity, at Unity of Boulder with Reverend Jack Groverland, I remember he would always say, and then the law, and then the principle, and then the law, and then the principle. And I remember being like, which principle? Which law? Tell me more. Which one? You just said the law, the principle. Which one? What is it? How do I activate it? What is it? What is it? What am I doing? I want to figure out what I'm doing that I don't know that I'm doing, and what I could do that I didn't know I could do, so that I can step forward, so I can step up, so that I can keep on walking, so that I can keep on talking, so that I can experience my emancipation from the human condition. Not that it won't still be occurring, but there will be a deeper presence in me, a deeper self that has deeper tools to presence it, and to the greatest of my ability to stand within it and shift the course of my life through shifting the course of my mind. So the law is the divine law of adjustment today. Eric Butterworth says that this is the law forever working to resolve at the highest possible level every inharmony, conflict, problem, lack, or ill. He says, where a problem exists, wherever problems appear, there is a force field set up around it, which is the activity of the divine law of adjustment, seeking to resolve the problem into a pattern that is good. Seeking to resolve the problem into a pattern of good. That means whatever it is, wherever it is, God is there. God is in the grand overall design and the great good. The great God is good all the time. That's what that good is. It doesn't mean that there is a man somewhere in the sky doing things, doing these atrocities, and then fixing them, saying, you're good enough, let's help ding a blessing here, let's ding a curse here. No. God is the good that is in everything and that can come from everything all of the time. He says, Eric Butterworth says that accidental loss can become a gain. The inharmony can open new ways of love. The problem can reveal new strengths. The lack can prepare the way for ingenious discoveries. And I love this part. He says, it is not that any unsatisfactory experience is fate-controlled. It is not. It is simply that the divine law of adjustment is forever working to resolve the conflict or lack or loss into that which is good. Isn't that a little more breathing space? Like, doesn't that give you a little more room to be human? And to experience things and go, you know, that was not good. This is not good. That does not feel good. To them that love God, all things work together for good. Love is the harmonizing faculty. God is the grand overall design. So to those that harmonize with the grand overall design, all things work together for good. But the human condition is often that instead of looking for rainbows, we ask why. So what does Eric Butterworth say about asking why? Because I don't really think we're going to stop doing that, right? It's just part of being human. There is, I think I've shared this before, another Unity minister shared this with me, that she worked with a group of Native Americans, that they do not have a word for why. So they never teach the word why to their children. Imagine growing up in a culture, in a community where you never hear why. Do you know how often? Raise a child and you will see how often you say why. I mean, and we teach them to just go, why? Well, then why? Well, then why? Imagine having no whys, what you would live from, how your mind would shift, what your thought process would be, and how it would be different. So he says this. He says, the question why has two basic and very different answers. One has to do with the why of retrospect. The other has to do with the why of forecast. Why did this happen is a question seeking to discover the cause. He goes on to talk about how that can be helpful for one to do as an individual. But he says a deep analysis of this why in retrospect is interesting, though it is not particularly helpful. And it can be detrimental to our good, because we tend to become preoccupied with the problem and do not think enough about the solution. He goes on to say, the important thing is that whatever happens, life goes on. Life is for living, for unfolding, for growing. Something happened. What can be done about it? This leads to the why of forecast. Why did it happen in terms of what good can come out of the happening? I'll share that again. Why did it happen in terms of what good can come out of the happening? He says this is an exciting and profitable form of self-analysis and self-discovery, for there is a potential of good to be derived from any experience. This does not simply imply that God arranges difficulties for your good, which is a traditional belief, is it not? God arranges difficulties for your good. Like, God won't give you more than you can handle. It's God's plan. Butterworth goes beyond that. The will of the infinite for you is changeless and eternal. It seeks ever and only to establish that which is good in your life. The fact that you have transgressed the law in thought does not mean that this will for you, for your good, is permanently or temporarily abrogated. It is ceaseless in its activity. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. He says, even if you mistakenly engage in experiences in the darkness of fear, the divine law of adjustment is with you to lead you through the darkness into the light of new blessings. He says the problem may have been a great crisis, even a tragedy, in which you went to the very brink of disaster. Yet because of the ceaseless activity of God in you, not only could you find help and strength when you needed it, but you went on to new growth and greater blessings. To new growth and greater blessings. So he goes on to talk about how we can gain from any point in our lives, from wherever we are standing, from any circumstance, in any now moment, we can walk into our evolution. Anything can become a gain, even an accidental loss. And in harmony can open new ways of love. The problem can reveal new strengths. The lack can prepare the new way for ingenious discoveries. But he talks about the secret to this, the secret to activating it. He says the great secret truth of the ages, which runs like a golden thread through the pages of the Bible and was taught and demonstrated by Jesus Christ, is simply this: wherever you are, God is. Wherever you are, God is. Wherever there is a need, there is an answer right where the need is. Wherever there is a problem, there is a solution implicit within the problem itself. The solution is implicit within the problem itself. He said the psalmist knew this when he sang, "If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the utmost parts of the sea, even there thy hand shall lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me." Right in this moment, There is an intelligence indwelling you that instantly knows the answer to any problem. So in reality, you have no problems. There are no energy problems in electricity. He says there are no addition or subtraction problems in mathematics. There are no attraction of body problems in gravity. In each case, there is a perfect law involved. Hold up an object heavier than the air and let it go, and the law of gravity will bring it to earth. You would have a problem if you had to force the object to earth. There is no problem for the law of gravity, which works automatically when you let go. The working of the law is natural. When you let go, the working of the law is natural. So is it with the principles of nature, so is it with the divine law of adjustment. No matter what the challenge or the need, let go and let God. And instantly, the healing, guiding, harmonizing, adjusting power of Spirit begins to resolve it for good. There is always a rainbow where we stand. There is always a pot of gold if we're willing to step into our practice and claim it. Otherwise, it may be there, sitting there, not visible to our eyes. When we see rain on a rainy day, it's not that the sun stopped shining, right? The sun's still there. The sun's still shining. Even in the middle of the darkest part of the night, the sun's still there. Are we turning away from it or are we turning into it? One of my spiritual nourishing resources is the group on social media called Wild Woman Sisterhood. And I just read this recently. It said, I release my partner from the obligation to complete me. I release my parents from the feeling they failed with me. I release my children from the need to bring me pride so they can write their own paths to the rhythm of their own hearts. I don't lack anything. I cherish my essence, my way of expressing it. Even if not everyone can understand me, I learn from all beings all the time. I honor the divinity in me and in you. That shamanic blessing. So can we step in our power of faith? Can we stand in our Unity 5 principles, knowing that there is one power and one present, that it is active and it is everywhere present? The second principle, that it is in me, it is in you. There is nowhere it is not. The third principle, that I am part of the law of attraction, that through my thoughts and my feelings, I create, I co-create. Can we engage the map, meditation, affirmation, prayer? And can we engage the fifth principle, that it's not enough to just know this stuff? I've got to act on it. I've got to act on it when I don't want to. I got to act on it when it's not looking good. I got to act on it when it's raining if I want to experience the fullness of my spiritual practice. Good to know. I've been spared. One power, one presence, and it seeks the good. In everything, it seeks the good. I close with this passage from Eric Butterworth, and I want to share that one of the things that has been helpful to me is standing in the midst of anything saying, this is for me. It's for me, not because it was for me that it was given to me. It is for me because I'm standing in it, and I'm saying that. So then my mind starts shifting the why did it happen to how is this for me? Eric Butterworth, in the book Life is for Living. Jesus was a great spiritual scientist, as well as a great teacher. He had discovered an inner key to what had been called supernatural law. He had discovered that divine law becomes a natural capacity to spiritually awakened man. He knew that man can release the tremendous power potential within him and in the spiritual world around him with the same ease that a child can flood the Empire State Building with light. We no longer wonder at the 1,001 miracles done by electricity, because they have a common phenomenon, completely natural experiences that are as simple as our breathing. This is the precise altitude at which Jesus functioned. He found the supernatural natural. There is our invitation to find the supernatural natural. Because the light of the world expressing is the open-armed invitation to say, yes, this and more you shall do. Namaste.